Now, if you jump down to verse 8, it says something very interesting. The beast that thou sawest was and is not. You say, wait, what? He was, but he is not. What's going on? What is John seeing here? Read on. He shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. You'll notice when the scriptures refer to God or members of the Godhead with regards to time, it usually will say which was, which is, and which is to come, or some set of words that will show that God is not bound by time.
An enduring nature.
Yes. Now, referring to the devil, notice the contrast, the beast that was and is not, and yet is. It's kind of this funny way to describe a person with regards to time. I love the fact that God is not bound by time, but Satan seems to be. This is in stark contrast to the great I am, the self-existent one who he is through all time, whereas Satan was, but is not, and yet he is. Just kind of a fascinating little contrast that you get there in verse 8 to the real thing that we're seeking to become more like God. And then you get John receives the interpretation of what some of these symbols surrounding this beast and the whore of all the earth, what they represent. And also keep in mind, John isn't the only one to tell the story of this whore, of all this harlot. If you read carefully Nephi's vision in 1 Nephi chapters 11 through 14, read his vision and compare it to John's panoptic vision that we've been reading, and you're going to see a lot of Venn diagram crossover between the two when he refers to the harlot and her dominion over the face of the earth. But let's look at John's interpretation that he receives here, starting in verse 9 down through 18. Here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. It's kind of fascinating, geographically speaking.
So Rome was built on 7 hills, and this is very famous throughout the ancient world. People often refer to Rome as a 7-hilled city. So this seems to be a very clear reference to Rome itself. And remember, in John's day, Rome was the most powerful empire that he was familiar with, and it was an empire that was creating significant problems for people who were wanting to be aligned to God. And so the Roman Empire becomes a symbol of so much that could go wrong in humanity to oppress God's people. So there is a historical connection here to John's environment that would help us better understand what he's talking about, that it's the rulers and the kings who oversaw the Roman Empire that were these symbols of the beast and the whore that were so connected to all this negative evil that's creating problems for God's people.
So then he describes the beast that was in verse 11 and is not. Even he is the 8th. It's beautiful symbolically, the number 8. One of the ways you could look at this in Hebrew is 8 represents a new beginning. It's a new initiation of a new cycle, because 7 is complete, it's whole, it's lacking nothing, it's finished. So 8 would then be that beginning point. And again, you've got good examples of 8 and you've got bad examples of 8. The good example being, what a great age that the Lord has designated for baptism to first be available at age 8, when you have a new beginning. It's a new life. Well, in this context, in a bad way, the beast is the 8th of these 7. It's a new beginning it's a new evil coming. in this final conflict that's about to take place. And then the 10 horns are in verse 12, being 10 kings. Verse 13, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. 10, giving power and strength, their life, their agency, their money, their desires, they give them to the beast. Isn't that fascinating? That the beast, representing the devil here, he consumes, he takes from people, from his followers. Whereas the Lamb, he gives to his followers. He gives and sustains and lifts his disciples. It's the contrast couldn't be more blaringly obvious. Verse 14, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. Don't you love how summarily he states that? It's just, oh, by the way, this huge group, they're going to make war against the Lamb. And you wouldn't expect a lamb to be this great fighter, this great warrior, but the Lamb will overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords and the King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. You're noticing that this contrast here is stark, but it's beautiful. That you don't live in a realm of darkness, of greed, of selfishness, of self-indulgence, of trying to set yourself above other people, self-appointedly. You're called by him. You're chosen by him. You choose to be faithful to him. You keep those covenants to the best of your ability, rather than over here take advantage of everyone at whatever opportunity you can to not be faithful, but to receive whatever is in it for you right here, right now. Verse 15 says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Pretty big dominion.